Welcome to the Occasional Motorcycle series, and this particular series is based around the Australian Velocette Owners Club 2024 rally. Now, this rally has been held in Coralban, the hinterland at the Gold Coast, and the rally's thrown up a word that I think we might be able to answer to the viewers tonight, and that's the word legend. Now, earlier in the evening, we had a gentleman by the name of Jim Day. He was presented with life membership. He'd been to every single Velocette rally in Australia. But I was talking to Jim later and he said, I don't want to be known as a life member, I want to be known as a legend. Now, some people probably think, legend, he's sort of having himself on. So I thought I'd look basically at legends and in particular at our patron, Anne Frampton. Now, legends can be lots of things. Laura and I have just come back from the UK and we went to Sherwood Forest. Robin Hood, Maid Marian, all those, we didn't see them, but we did see the 1,000-year-old oak tree. And in most people's idea, that's a legend. You talk to other people and they say legends are sporting legends. Now, looking at this lovely black bike here, immediately recalls to me what most people in Australia consider a legend in the sporting field. And that is the thoroughbred black racehorse called Black Cavier. Now, Black Cavier won 25 races. She was undefeated, and most people were amazed, not the first time she won a Melbourne Cup, second time, third time, she became a legend. So I thought, what really is a legend? Do you have to be a sports person to be a legend? We can talk about Bentleys, Maseratis as being legend cars, Rolls Royces. We can look at the motorcycle field and think of people like Jeff Duke. We can think of later people, John McGuinness on the Isle of Man, Giacomo Agostini. We can think of Stanley Woods on the Isle of Man. We can think of Alan Burt on the Isle of Man to bring some Australian names into it and link it into something that's black and beautiful, and it's the Velocette motorcycle. And the Velocette Owners Club of Australia is extremely lucky to have our guest for tonight. This lady, Anne Frampton, is the guest, she is the patron. She's also our guest, but she's the patron at the Velocette Owners Club of Australia. And it's a great pleasure to welcome you, Anne, to the Occasional Motorcycle series. And perhaps we might start off, can you tell us how come someone with the name Anne Frampton is linked to Velocette?
By the person that started it all, Johannes Goodman, and that was my great-grandfather, who had, and it was Percy, my grandfather, and my father, Bertram Goodman, who then saw the demise, unfortunately.
Right, now, we could pretty well logically say that you arrived in the world kicking and screaming into a world at motorcycles. You didn't really have a choice. You were born into a family of motorcyclists, manufacturers. What's some of your very earliest memories? You know, you probably, I'm not sure, were you born around Birmingham or?
Yes, because my grandfather actually gave my father a house when he got married. And that was in, I think, Acox Green, I think. Simon would know more about that. Simon's my brother, and he was happy to be born into the motorcycle industry. So.
Yes, now, we know there's a famous York Road, Hall Green. We had the opportunity earlier this year to actually go and do a video series on it. And what really amazed us was, despite this wonderful product here that went from the very early 1900s through to around about 1971, but we'll let you fill that out later. The locals knew absolutely nothing why the building was there. We were able to find the railway line at the back of it where the bikes were loaded and sent out. So you were born in this motorcycle home. You mentioned Simon. We know that Simon did some part-time work. How and what effect do you think motorcycling had on your life? Did it make you want to become a motorcyclist, or you tell me?
My father was away a lot. He was always travelling and working away from home. So I remember very noisy places, motorbikes going around. And for a young child, it can be difficult for your ears and things like that. But as a child, I mean, we rode around in Bentleys, but you didn't know they were anything special. They were a car. Or for me, I mean, I take things differently. I'm taking more after my mother.
Right. Your mother, I believe, had a fairly fine line and balance between raising the family and having enough money to run the company.
Yeah, she did a lot. She was came from council house and money is short. She was an intelligent woman that was denied the chance to go to university because of money. And she was very careful with money, a trait which I myself followed. So my brother used to call me being mean with money.
And I read somewhere in a book, I try and do as much research as I can, a chicken was expected to last the best part of a week or something in the house.
Towards the end, my father took a cut in salary, and they used to have a cook, and they always had a big lunch, and she used to bring things home. That was one way of saving money. But the chicken she used to make the equivalent of a size 14 chicken, do 3 meals. Dad used to use a strop and a razor blade. He could carve like you could almost see through it. So he carved and it looked more than it was. And then there was a curry made out of what was left over after the meal for 4 of us. And then the carcass was put in and she made soup from the carcass.
You sort of grew up in a pretty harsh time, just even outside of what was happening with the factory. Post-war, there was a lot of rationing. Food was not perhaps as plentiful. What are some of your early childhood memories at those days?
We always had puddings. Dad grew a lot of stuff in the garden, but that was probably when we moved to places. Waterorton from Birmingham, we moved out because of Simon's health, and Waterorton had a huge garden. It was on a 1/4 acre, and that's when the gardening happened. I hated gardening.
Was this flower gardening or fruit and vegetables?
No, this was vegetables.
Vegetables, right.
Yeah.
Now,
and a lot of weeding.
A lot of weeding. Now, I guess Dad would have brought home Velocettes quite often to come after work, did he? Were they something that...
Well, according to Simon, he did. I don't really remember, and I didn't remember that I didn't enjoy being on the back of a Velocette, probably because it was cold, and I don't have a tolerance of cold.
That's why you live in Australia.
I live over here, yeah.
Right. Now, there's a lot of talk about these particular bikes being the thoroughbreds. Now, we've mentioned Bentleys and things like that. Was it your family's understanding, or from your father, that the bike he was manufacturing was meant to be for the people only, or was it going to be a thoroughbred going back to Black Cavier?
I think it was meant to cover both the racing side of it and for the general man to do his shopping and everything else. It was before the small family car came in, so it was meant for every man.
Right. So
like that advert we have. It's got the name Velocette, which has got LE for learner and the TT at the end of it. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, I haven't
that was
seen
really smart advertising.
it was. That was back in 24, 26, those years, I think, wasn't it?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I'm pretty
have
sure.
one on our wall.
Back then, back with Stanley Woods and things like that, because actually your father was not too bad a rider either, was he, from memory?
No, well, I remember Mum told me that he raced when I was 2 years old in the Isle of Man. I think he came second in the junior TT. And I can't remember the other ones, but he realised it was a bit foolish that now he was the father of a 2-year-old child, and he gave it away. But he always rode fast. He always drove fast. Except when he used to bring the bikes home, having found out from Simon, because he was running them in. And when my brother got into trouble for speeding, he said, "How do you expect me to not go fast? All our lives as children, you've driven fast." My mother said she'd like him to slow down so she could see the scenery that was going past sometime.
Now, I seem to recall a certain much younger Anne posing on a Vogue, and was the other one a Viceroy?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Now, those two particular models are different to what a lot of people think of the Velocette motorcycles. Probably if you ask most people, they are very familiar with the 350 Mac and with the 500 Venoms, and they're not so familiar, or they don't want to be familiar, or they don't even like the flat twins. Now, really, I don't want to ask you because you're not a motorcycling person. We might talk about that a little bit later, but they were the bikes that you posed with. Now, I believe that you got a very small fortune for posing, and that money you sort of invested in motorcycle gear.
No,
So
I got no money for it.
right,
My mother decided that I was as pretty as the girls that were paying £2.50 an hour for, and that I could do the modelling. Obviously, another way of my father trying to save the cost to Velocette at the time, and that's how I got it. So I was given as a gift for doing it, but the excitement of being a model for the day was unbelievable. So it was held in Evesham and Rouselanch, both beautiful areas, and I do remember that day.
right, and to this day, you still look lovely on the bikes, don't you? We saw there's those photos that are in the archives of this lovely young lady sitting very elegantly on those two particular bikes. Do you think that you were the reason that perhaps the sales at the bikes weren't as good as what you expected? No, sorry to throw that one in, but I couldn't.
I have a good sense of humour.
Yeah, I couldn't resist that one, Anne.
Actually, from the advertising, people didn't know it was. I think it was in the picture. They put that black and white picture in the book, and nobody knew it was me. And they sent a pamphlet around the world with English bikes on it, and I was actually in that picture. And that particular, I don't have that prospectus, unfortunately, but.
Did you ever go to the Earl's Court motorcycle show when the factory had their bikes released?
No, I don't believe I did.
No?
We went to a lot of rallies, but I remember them later because they were then the older motorbikes that used to have rallies, and I remember my uncle Peter, my father's cousin. His pants caught fire on one of the rallies. He was okay from that, but Mum used to bring us along, but I don't know if I remember it through pictures.
So while Simon, your older brother, was younger brother, was working in the factory, what was Anne doing? Were you at home helping, or did you go away to school?
No, I didn't help. Not with the motorbike.
No, but around the house, were you?
I hated gardening, so I always helped my mother with cleaning in the house, and Dad would have loved cooking. So when I was a young child, I have memories of him. Come on, let's go in the kitchen and make some fudge. Just to make fudge and toffees and
fudge. You've got us in there.
You've got me.
Yeah. And then what did you do? Education? Did you wise?
Well, Simon and I went to small schools to begin with, and then when I was about 11, I was a very shy child, go figure now, but I went to a Church of England boarding school. I don't think the education was very good. They turned out young ladies who were good at religion and art, and my art wasn't too bad, but I didn't know what to do when I grew up. I chose to do cooking.
Was that a boarding school or?
No, it was a boarding school. And it was in Sutton Coldfield,
right?
Called Burcock Grange. That no longer exists. But I was very unhappy as a boarder. And Simon went to. You see, that was the thing. Dad went to a boarding school, and they tend to do the same thing for your children. But Simon ran away on his first day. I never had the guts. I was a very good conformist child.
Right, so you finished school. What happened in your life then, Anne?
I chose to do hospitality management, and that was in Worcester, where we were living. We moved to North Biddle, and it was about half an hour drive, and that's when I started driving on the LE to going to.
So you did ride a motorbike then?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
For for a few years, but I remember once when I'm trying to pull it on the stand, I mean, it was about 60 kilos then, and it went, and I went with it and fell out to the other side, and I felt like an idiot then. But and I went to learn judo at one stage in winter, and because I feel the cold and I don't have a good circulatory system, I used to wear silk gloves, followed by leather gloves with sheep fur line, and then had the handlebar muffs, the big
Yes, yeah.
and they were leather, and I would still arrive with frozen thumbs, even going to Worcester, that was 15 minutes away. And I noticed I used to have a tot of brandy before I left to warm me up in the winter. Not that was condoned by Mother.
Now,
And coming back, I was, after throwing people around on the judo mat, then I was warm enough, the blood was going around.
all right, now you said you rode an LE. People either love or hate LEs. I'm afraid I love all Velocettes, and that's not because I'm talking to you, but you know, we have a collection that tries to show the whole history of Velocette. Now, I know probably to you it's fairly painful, the LE, and what it did to the firm, but when you were actually riding one, did you feel proud that you're riding a Velocette, or you thought, well, there's nothing else I can ride, or I can't afford a car?
It was good to feel free and not to have to take a bus. Mm-hmm. And I liked being out there in the fresh air, except when it was really cold. When it rained, I didn't like it. It feels like needles on the skin. Mm-hmm. But I learnt on another bike, it was a Honda 50.
Oh,
but they were
yeah.
easier to manage. My mother preferred to have those, so I got all my riding skills on that. Actually, I took my test on that. So I might have been 17 when I started to ride the bigger bike.
Well, and I'll let you into a secret. I also learnt to ride a Honda 50, and I did my licence test on it. So, and I still have the bike until this day. But like they say, you meet the nicest people on a Honda, so maybe that's why you're such a nice lady. But how long did you keep the LE for? You know?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember the colour of it?
All the memories.
Yeah.
He had a photographic memory. I seem to have had none of that. Mm. So I don't remember.
That's
how
right.
I had it.
Colour of it? Was it traditional grey, or was it? Because Velocette had a history of.
But you see, what happened is I got off that bike and into a Robin Reliant. That was my
three-wheel car, aren't they, from memory? Robin Reliant, three-wheel. Yeah.
That it was like a proper car. It was like a Mini, really, and you could drive it backwards. But I was able to learn how to drive a car, and obviously not manual as well, without having to have anybody near me. And I would drive up and down the country lanes and sort of more or less taught myself to drive.
And what brought you to Australia? Because you're pretty much a dual citizen, aren't you? Yeah. But what brought you to Australia, apart from the weather? The weather. I knew you were going to say the weather.
I had SADS disease. I got very depressed in winter, and it took all my energy the sunshine brought me energy and happiness, and the rain and the cold, it brought me nothing but misery. As a young child, we had I think in the 1960s, a freeze up, as we used to call it, where it was so cold the snow never became slush. It was frozen and black ice, and the dangers of riding as well in those conditions. And I never left the house for 6 weeks.
I don't blame you.
I thought I was an inside person till I came to live in Australia.
I must say, having travelled a lot in England, on a motorbike, it is not pleasant, even in summertime. Now, you came to Australia. Did you have a job to come to in Australia, or did you have any family connections here?
I had family connections through my maternal grandmother, Lillian. And I had third cousins, and they came over to England, and I met them. A friend emigrated before then and said, do you want to come with me? And I said, I want to get my experience in England first. And I worked for the police, running 2 canteens at 21 years of age.
Excellent.
The West Mercia Constabulary. So most of the people.
So you kept the troops fed. You kept them fed nicely?
Yeah, coppers fed. Yeah, it was a school for coppers actually, and the other one was the headquarters, so 2 different canteens.
All right. So you came to Australia. Without being too personal, well, you weren't these people that arrived with a few pounds in their pockets, or you had a more...
I had £100, which I sent to the rural bank.
Which unfortunately no longer exists.
And that was where I got my first bank card from there, and I got my first job was in catering, was working for the rural bank, and I was assistant manageress. So it's large scale catering.
Right. And this was in
1970. Well, I wrote a little poem which I was going to send. So from Birmingham to Bondi and places in between, I left the pommy lifestyle to live the Aussie dream. I've been to many countries, but not to Oz before. It was the cheapest Christmas cruise in 1974.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, break now.
I was going to, they wanted me to fly over, but I wanted to come by ship because I thought leaving England the day before my dad's birthday, which was very sad, and leaving the middle of the winter to come to the middle of summer would be too much of a change. And I'd never been on a cruise ship before, and it was called the Eleanors. It was a Greek ship, and it was an interesting 4-week cruise, and I was a £50 pom.
Yeah.
I did travel back before the 2 years was up because everybody said, well, never mind, it's only 2 years, then you can come back. And I said, I'm not going out like the original people did in Shackleton Crane. I'm choosing to go out. And they'd say, oh, you're going for the new life. I said, no, I'm not going for a new life particularly. I just want to go over there with an open mind, and I just can't stand the weather here in England.
Sounds pretty logical reasons for me to leave. I love going back to the UK to look around and things like that, but no, it wouldn't be my home either. So you ended up managing catering for a division at the Rural Bank here in Australia. What about the loves in your life?
Well, I had a disastrous first marriage when I was 29, and I got out of it. It would be known as a violent marriage, but in those days it's a lot more mental than physical. I went out with a 3-month-old child, and strangely enough, when he was 21, we gave him as his present a return trip to Australia, and he ended up staying in England until 2 years ago and looked after my mum.
Right.
So he's now spending half time in England, half time in Australia, so he missed his family.
Now, you've had a number of careers in Australia, I believe. Bondi Removals rings a bell somewhere.
Well, Norbert and I met at Parents Without Partners, which was before computers and Tinder, and he was still looking for...
4th of April, 1980.
And so this is Norbert. You met this lovely lady.
Hello, yes.
Yeah, and subsequently you became a team. Yeah. What was your occupation at that time?
I was an accountant.
Right.
And just didn't like the pressure. Not enough money for it. So I started a company, started as a courier. Friends of ours had a business printing, and I was delivering them. It developed to numerous other ventures, rubbish removal, gardening, what else we did?
Repairs and maintenance.
Repairs, maintenance.
Cleaning service.
Local men, rubbish, we call us a local men because we were in Bondi and it was local. And what else? Then we went to furniture after everything, even fencing actually we did as well. And 1st of March next year, 2025, will be 45 years.
45 years.
Now, what we have to ask you here, Norbert, because it's the Occasional Motorcycle Series, have you ever ridden a motorbike? No.
Oh, actually, I'm lying. I did on the farm. My brother, my ex-wife, and my son, they had a farm. So my son, who was 14 at the time, was let me have his child. I never ridden it, but I did it on the farm, for maybe a couple of hours. I loved it, but I wouldn't do that now.
But I know you're keeping the flag flying.
I just married her. Okay? I married into the family. You know?
I can't help but notice you're wearing a Velocette t-shirt there. So
Oh,
you,
absolutely, it's been given to us. So
yeah,
many.
so you're
that's a
flying the
very-
flag.
Yeah.
Now, have you, obviously you've had a lot of discussions with Anne. Anything in the family history that you feel this lady's had a lot to do and a lot of things happen in her life? How did you see, or do you think the background, the Velocette?
When I met her, I didn't know about it.
Didn't know that at all.
No, definitely didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
It just develops. I fell in love with her. I love her nose, funny enough, because she looked like, I don't know whether it tells you anything, but it was a lady called Jackie Weaver. She was a very famous actress already then, and now she's even more famous as she got older. I never met her, but I just liked that particular actress. And when I saw her, Anne was a singer as well. When we met once, she was there with her now ex-boyfriend, obviously. And I just said that, I liked her, and I was going with my other girlfriend who was 10 years older, and we couldn't have children, obviously, together because of that. God, was it 22, and she was 32.
Now,
No,
tell me,
30 more than that, because 1980, 32 and 42, yeah.
Norbert, now obviously you come
I've
along
never
to
done an interview like this, so I wasn't prepared.
Yeah, you come along to a lot.
But
You come along to a lot of motorcycle events.
yeah.
Is there something? Do you sort of have a feeling these days?
Yes, I have a feeling for them
Yeah,
now.
now, and that's
absolutely, now.
and I guess Anne is well and truly.
I feel very privileged that I can be, because I'm married and I
Yeah.
treated like a royalty. I mean, as I said, unfortunately for the last 5 years we haven't been there, but the first time we were discovered, or she was discovered rather, 2005. It was a 100th anniversary of Velocette,
that's right.
and
I
we
remember.
were
I was
invited
there.
to,
I was there.
I think it was called Richmond.
Richmond,
New South
yes,
Wales,
Richmond
and,
Agricultural College for a famous photograph.
Yeah, and we got sort of everything given, and suddenly we feel that, it will be good to return something. So, and that's
Well,
what
these are
she's been
legends,
doing.
aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their bikes
Yeah.
are legends.
Oh, absolutely.
You are too.
Right. So one good thing, Norbert, you talk about that. The bike we've been looking at here is 102 years old, so there's still plenty of time to educate you in the way it bikes. And what do you it's obviously a great honour to us having you as patron. What sort of interest do you take in the bikes these days?
I read a lot of magazines now, and I guess, and I've read the books, and I guess it sort of opens up a world that I didn't remember, but then I feel so proud. And the fact that people have such a love for this bike. So I guess it's re-educated me, because when you're young, you get on with your own life. When you become a teenager, move away. And when we moved from outside Birmingham, which Waterorton was, I suddenly lost all my teenage life and went to the middle of the country. I'm not a country girl. It was desolate in winter. We were living a field away from the next people. But then from my talk about all the work Simon did, and we couldn't have done that in another place when we moved from Waterorton to North Biddle. But
Now, here's a subjective question for you, and we might sort of finish up at this point. We're looking at this wonderful 1922. We've got 1913 in the room here with us that we featured on a different one. Do you reckon, subjectively, in 100 years' time, there'll still be people sitting around at a convention like this talking about Velocette?
I worry about it. I think that we're not getting enough young people in.
Yeah.
And we're obviously not going to be around here in 100, and I don't think I'd want to be. So, but I feel very proud when I was invited to do it. And I mean, I went to Eastern Creek Raceway, and it started with a checkered flag. I mean, I get all these chances to do these things, and by birthright. So I remember that, shaking hands with 200 people at that rally, and one man got up from the wheelchair to walk over to shake my hand and get his mug. But I was able to chat to these people, and it just worked. It worked so well, and I just love it.
Well, if you love the bikes,
Yeah.
you're interested in where they came from and how they came to be and why they're still so prevalent and why they're still so
What I've seen
mechanically
here.
sound
Absolutely
after all this
amazing.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely
You know,
amazing.
there's no reason why this bike won't be still the same in another 100 years. There's nothing
As long
to
as it's got someone to care
get
for it.
Okay, and that's
Right.
the point.
That's what.
We're all only custodians of them. We can't take them with us, but we can certainly look after them, and that's our philosophy. That's how we got into Velocettes. Was Laura's passionate about the sound of them, mechanical side of them. I just love the design of them, and of course riding them. And we want to preserve them for future generations, so that they can. Maybe in 100 years' time, like you said, we won't be around, but this particular bike, someone will say, well, that bike's 204 years old now, and hopefully it'll be in just as good a condition. And I think
the men
that that's...
who built them would probably appreciate the fact it's if they could foresee this bike today,
Yeah.
wouldn't they be proud of it also?
They
That-
would.
and it is a credit to them for what they've done. I think it's a great credit.
They
to
were
them.
known as the Rolls Royce of motorcycles.
And they are. They are.
They probably made too good,
Yeah.
because a lot of things that were made many years ago are still lasting, and the new things are
It's
throw
long
away.
gone, yeah.
And I wasn't brought up to throw away, so. And I just often wonder what would have happened if the car that Percy designed, what would have happened if they had been able to produce those? Might be a
But they
whole
were built
different-
with integrity
Yeah.
from right
But there
through.
was loyalty in the factory and the workers in those days. It was completely different feel about it. They were like what I feel here, not nervous giving the talk, because they're family, and they were treated like family. And we did that in our business.
And the loyalty was reciprocated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But nowadays it's the bosses are so, they think they're better than us, and that. Never felt that way. Mum used to say, if you can go and clean the toilets, never look down at someone doing that, because they're doing a job for honest day's pay. And first thing I did when I went to my first job at 21, I got in there and cleaned the toilets, and I had a lot of respect from people double my age.
Yes, of course.
And it's hard to be a young person telling an older one what to do. But in our own business, we cooked for the guys, and we'd have them round
Yes, I've read
after
that.
bad job, and we'd drink with them and talk about the days, and that's a whole new story all about removals.
Right. So we started off talking about legends. I believe that I've just spoken to a legend, because to me, a legend is a person who sees, acts upon, and leaves a feeling with you. And we believe in the Velocette Club, and that your presence is still not quite a mystical approach to it, but the fact that you were around when these bikes were being built, and your ongoing support of us makes you a legend. So thank you very much for talking. If you're watching this video, please add any comments, give us a like, and more importantly, share this Velocette episode of the Occasional Motorcycle series around the world, and we'd love to see photos of your Velocettes and stories on it.